Hey everybody, and welcome back to Dow's Stock Talk. We're going to be doing a deep dive today into a company that's really got Wall Street buzzing.
Yeah,
MicroStrategy.
they're an interesting one.
You might have heard the name thrown around lately,
Definitely have.
and for a pretty good reason.
For very good reason.
They make software,
Mm-hmm.
but it's their Bitcoin strategy that has a lot of people scratching their heads.
That's right. They've gone all in on
They're
Bitcoin.
really all in.
Really all in. Like, imagine if a software company just decided to use all their cash and even take out loans just to buy mountains and mountains of Bitcoin.
That's MicroStrategy in a nutshell.
That is MicroStrategy.
You get this is their stock price. It's gone bananas.
Oh, yeah.
Up over 575% in just the last year.
That's incredible.
That's more than Bitcoin itself.
Uh-huh.
So the big question is this wild ride sustainable?
Well, that's what we're going to unpack today.
Okay.
So, MicroStrategy's CEO, Michael Saylor, he's really the one leading this charge. He believes that Bitcoin is the future of money, and he's putting the company's money where his mouth is.
We're talking about a company with a market cap of around $80 billion.
Yeah.
They've poured over $40 billion into Bitcoin,
Wow.
building what they call a Bitcoin treasury.
A Bitcoin treasury, yeah.
They're even using these things called convertible notes and preferred stock offerings,
Mm-hmm.
which is a fancy way of saying they're using debt to buy more Bitcoin.
That's right. And you got to wonder what investors are thinking when they see this. Are they a software company or are they a Bitcoin ETF? Because right now they're paying a premium for MicroStrategy stock, essentially betting on Bitcoin's future.
And not everyone is convinced that this is a good idea.
Oh, no, not at all.
You've got people like Jim Cramer waving red flags saying this
Yeah.
whole thing just smells fishy.
Sounds fishy.
He's questioning, is this growth spurt sustainable, especially if Bitcoin takes a nosedive?
Right. There's this whole perpetual motion machine idea at play here. They're essentially hoping that the value of their Bitcoin holdings will just keep growing faster than their debt, creating this cycle of profit.
But if Bitcoin's price tanks, that whole machine could come crashing down.
Yeah, that's the risk, right?
They're not backing down.
No.
Just recently, news broke, they plan to issue another $2 billion in preferred stock to buy, you guessed it, more Bitcoin.
More Bitcoin, wow.
It's a bold move.
I'd say so.
Some might even say reckless.
Risky for sure.
Absolutely. And it's split opinions on Wall Street.
It really has.
Some analysts are bullish, setting price targets way above the current price.
Yeah, way up
While
this.
others are shaking their heads, seeing it as just this risky gamble.
It's hard to say who's right.
So for you listening out there,
Especially those of you new to investing.
here's the bottom line. MicroStrategy is not your average software company.
No, it's not.
It's a leverage bet on Bitcoin.
Exactly.
Investing in them means you are betting on the future of cryptocurrency.
You are all in on crypto.
All in.
Welcome back to Dow Stock Talk. Let's get right down to it. Should you buy MicroStrategy stock?
Okay, so we know MicroStrategy is basically hitching its wagon to Bitcoin. What should investors be thinking about when they're trying to make sense of all of this?
Well, imagine you're at a casino.
Okay.
You can play it safe and bet on red or black at the roulette table, or you can go all in on a single number. That's kind of what investing in MicroStrategy is like right now.
Whoa. High stakes gamble.
Exactly.
I can see where you're going with this.
If you're bullish on Bitcoin, if you believe its price is going to keep climbing, then MicroStrategy might look pretty tempting. Their stock performance is directly tied to Bitcoin's performance.
So if Bitcoin goes up, MicroStrategy goes up. But what happens if Bitcoin goes down?
Well, that's where the leverage comes in. Remember all that debt they've taken on to buy Bitcoin? If Bitcoin's price takes a major hit, MicroStrategy could be in a real bind.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
They could be forced to sell off a huge chunk of their Bitcoin to cover their debts.
Right.
I remember hearing about something called a margin call.
You're exactly right. A margin call is basically a demand from the lender saying, hey, the value of your collateral, in this case Bitcoin, has dropped, so you need to pony up more cash or sell some of your assets to cover the difference.
That sounds messy. So
Yeah.
even though MicroStrategy is bringing in revenue from their software business, it's really just a drop in the bucket compared to the value of their Bitcoin holdings.
Right.
Like-
It's almost like their software business is an afterthought at this point. Their stock price is basically a reflection of investor confidence in Bitcoin.
So for you, the listener, trying to wrap your head around this, it boils down to this. Do you believe in Bitcoin's long-term potential? Are you willing to ride the roller coaster of its volatility? Because with MicroStrategy, you're essentially buying a leveraged Bitcoin bet.
Now, it's not all doom and gloom. MicroStrategy isn't in imminent danger of collapsing. They're still profitable, and they haven't hit a point where they can't meet their financial obligations. But it's important to understand that this is a high-stakes, high-reward situation.
Speaking of high stakes, what about the analysts on Wall Street? Are they all waving red flags, or are some of them actually buying into this whole Bitcoin strategy?
You'd be surprised. There's actually a pretty wide range of opinions out there. Some analysts are super bullish on MicroStrategy, setting some pretty aggressive price targets for their stock.
Wait, really? So they're basically saying that even at its current price, MicroStrategy is a bargain. What's their logic?
Their logic is that Bitcoin is going to keep going up, potentially reaching astronomical prices. If that happens, MicroStrategy with its massive Bitcoin hoard stands to benefit enormously.
Okay, that makes sense. But isn't that a huge gamble? What about the folks who are skeptical?
Well, the skeptics see it as a house of cards. They argue that Bitcoin's price is inflated, that it's a bubble waiting to burst. And if that happens, they think MicroStrategy could be in serious trouble.
It's fascinating how polarizing this strategy is. You've got some people saying it's pure genius and others saying it's reckless insanity.
It really comes down to your own personal risk tolerance and your outlook on Bitcoin. Now, you can't talk about MicroStrategy without talking about the man behind the curtain, Michael Saylor, their CEO. He's a brilliant guy, a real visionary, but he's also a total Bitcoin evangelist.
Yeah, I've heard him in interviews. He's all in on Bitcoin, almost to the point of obsession. It's like he's trying to convert the entire financial world to Bitcoin.
He's definitely on a mission. He believes that Bitcoin is not just a digital currency, it's a technological revolution that's going to change the world.
I'm curious, does his unwavering faith in Bitcoin make you more or less confident in MicroStrategy's strategy?
Well, it's certainly a factor to consider. Saylor's conviction is contagious. He can articulate his vision so clearly that it's easy to get swept up in the excitement. But it's important to remember that even the most brilliant minds can be wrong.
Right, so you, the listener, have to weigh Saylor's enthusiasm against the very real risks involved.
Exactly. And remember, this is a constantly evolving story. What looks like a genius move today could turn out to be a disastrous gamble tomorrow. It's the Wild West of cryptocurrency, and MicroStrategy is right at the heart of it.
All right, let's take a step back for a moment. We've been talking a lot about MicroStrategy and Bitcoin. But what does all of this mean for the bigger picture? What are the broader implications for the financial world?
That's the really interesting part. MicroStrategy's actions are a sign of a much larger trend, the blurring of lines between traditional finance and the world of cryptocurrency.
You're saying that a publicly traded company like MicroStrategy betting big on Bitcoin is a signal that things are changing.
Absolutely. Traditionally, these two worlds have been very separate. You had your Wall Street investors in their suits, and then you had your crypto enthusiasts in their hoodies, and they rarely cross paths.
It's like two different universes colliding.
Exactly. But now we're seeing a convergence. Big institutional investors are starting to dip their toes into the crypto waters. You've got Tesla, Square, PayPal, even some banks are starting to offer crypto services.
And now we have Bitcoin ETFs, which means regular investors can get in on the action without having to buy Bitcoin directly. It feels like things are moving really fast.
It's a whirlwind of change, and it's raising a lot of questions. How do we regulate this new world? What are the risks and rewards, and how will it all play out in the long run? Nobody knows for sure, but it's definitely an exciting time to be watching it all unfold.
So for our listeners who might be thinking about investing in MicroStrategy, what's the one key takeaway they should walk away with?
The biggest thing is to understand that you're not just investing in a software company. You're essentially buying into a bet on Bitcoin. If you're bullish on Bitcoin's future, you might be willing to stomach the risk. But if you're skeptical of cryptocurrency, MicroStrategy is probably not the investment for you.
Welcome back to Dow Stock Talk. As we wrap up our deep dive into MicroStrategy, let's shift gears and talk about what their story means for the future.
You know, it's funny. When you think about it, MicroStrategy's journey is almost like a microcosm of what's happening in the financial world right now.
I like that, a microcosm. So what are we seeing reflected in this tiny mirror?
Well, we're seeing this incredible shift, this collision between the old guard of finance and this new disruptive force of cryptocurrency. It's like watching a tectonic shift happen right before our eyes.
And MicroStrategy is right there on the fault line, shaking things up. It's almost like they're daring the rest of the corporate world to follow suit.
Right. And it begs the question, will other companies be brave enough to follow MicroStrategy down this path? Will we see more companies putting Bitcoin on their balance sheets?
It's a gamble, that's for sure.
Yeah.
But as we've seen, fortune favors the bold sometimes.
Absolutely. But it's not a decision to be made lightly. There are massive risks involved. Imagine the CFO of a Fortune 500 company trying to explain to their board why they just dumped half their cash into Bitcoin.
I can just picture the headlines now. Company bets big on Bitcoin, stock plummets.
Right. So it'll be interesting to see how this all plays out. Will MicroStrategy's gamble inspire a wave of corporate adoption of Bitcoin, or will it serve as a cautionary tale? Only time will tell.
And for our listeners out there, many of whom are just starting out on their investing journey, what can they learn from this whole saga?
I think the biggest takeaway is that the financial world is changing rapidly. What seemed impossible a few years ago is now becoming commonplace.
Cryptocurrency isn't just a fringe movement anymore. It's forcing its way into the mainstream.
Exactly. And that presents both opportunities and challenges. For investors, it's crucial to stay informed, to do your research, and to understand the risks involved.
This isn't your grandpa's stock market anymore. Things are moving fast, and you need to be prepared to adapt.
Absolutely. And it's not just about Bitcoin. There's a whole ecosystem of cryptocurrencies and blockchain technology emerging. It's a wild, exciting, and sometimes confusing world out there.
So for those of you listening, keep your eyes open. Stay curious, and don't be afraid to dive in and explore.
And remember, investing is a marathon, not a sprint. Whether you're a seasoned pro or just starting out, the key is to keep learning, keep evolving, and to never stop asking questions.
That's it for our deep dive into MicroStrategy on Dow Stock Talk. We hope you learned something new and that you're feeling a little bit more prepared to navigate the ever-changing world of finance.
Until next time, happy investing.